Rachel, how do we handle the attendance for this? Do roll call? Okay, thanks. Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is the special session of the Marion City Council, Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. We'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Harper.
Here.
Ms. Atkins. Here. Mr. Jensen.
Here.
Mayor Aberosely.
Here.
Mr. Brandt.
Here.
Ms. Gedalia. Mr. Sterned.
Here.
Okay, so Councilmember Goodell is not joining us at this time. If she does join the meeting electronically, just if you can let us know. All right, we'll proceed with our discussion regarding proposals for the city manager recruitment services. I'll turn over the meeting to our human resources director, Kirsten.
Yeah, so at council direction, we were asked to select 4 executive search firms to assist with the city manager job search. It was suggested that we identify 2 local firms and 2 out of state, which we did. We have provided you with a side-by-side snapshot of their location, cost, target hire date, and things like that. And after review of the proposals, we were wanting to make the recommendation that we go with Hinson Consulting. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about the proposals. That they're a little bit different. Some went into great detail in terms of a process, and others were a little bit more vague. But as you can see, the breakdown,
Okay.
the proposals.
I'll just announce that Councilmember Gadela has joined the meeting.
Okay.
So, okay, so I know you distributed this overall summary or comparison between all 4. Do you want to summarize that or?
Sure. So again, the proposals are very different in their formatting. Some of them have more of an a la carte where the actual services are broken down with a dollar figure tied to them, and others are more of an overall flat fee. But with Novak Consulting, they're located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Their cost is approximately $25,000 to $27,000, which is a market rate for a selection of the search. Their target hire date was late October. Some of the things that I thought were noteworthy after reviewing the proposals: 1, they've got a pretty broad geographic reach. The assumption there is that they've got a large candidate pool and a lot of contacts to choose from. Again, their pricing is market competitive. They have a lot of services that this firm offers, everything from compensation studies to job descriptions to OD, organizational design, recruitment, and things like that. So again, that can be a good thing, but we also want someone that's very focused in the recruiting niche as well. As far as the Callahan and Hinson Consulting firm, they're located in Iowa. They have more of an a la carte approach where you can see that the services have a dollar figure associated with each of those things, but they are not to exceed $21,500. They had a target date of late November. If you look at the, I know Steve had a question about the timeline, and if you take a look, they had assumed that the candidate we would select would have a 60-day notice. That is built into the timeline, and that's why there is a difference, I believe, in the timelines in the proposals. They're interesting in that they specialize in city administration and city manager searches. They had a very personalized proposal targeting, specifically what we're looking for, what our needs are, and things like that. They have a local focus on their recruiting. Again, their market pricing is competitive. And again, their services, they have a little bit more of a niche in terms of their focus is recruiting, very heavily recruiting. Ralph Anderson Consulting is located in Rockland, California. They've got a flat fee of $25,000. So things like what the exercise we're going through with Patty Shada, for example, we will be creating the candidate profile. We would still be paying that flat $25,000 fee. If we were to go that route, they've got an early October target start date. They've got a project manager with 20 years experience as a city manager, which is interesting. They've done the job. They would typically know what is required of that position. Market competitive pricing. Again, a broad geographic reach, presumably a large network to draw upon. They've been in business since 1972. So these are, again, just things that I thought were noteworthy when looking at all four of the proposals. Um, Lastly, Midwest Municipal Consulting is located in Ankeny. She's got a flat fee of $11,300. If you can see in the proposal, a lot of what the other firms outlined in their proposals, she directed those services back to us. So creating a candidate profile and things like that, which is probably why the fee is a different rate. She's got a target date of October. Again, it was remarkable that her rate was significantly below the other three. And she offers a wide range of services as well. She, I believe, is a single person firm, and that is noteworthy as well. So again, all things considered, knowing that I will be heavily involved in basically the shepherding of the process, I landed on the recommendation of Hinton Consulting.
Okay, we'll take questions for Kirsten or discussion. Go ahead, Colette.
Just a follow-up question to that, Kirsten.
Yeah.
So this is your recommendation. Can you tell us why you recommend this one over the other ones?
Sure. All things considered, essentially, they're all pretty much in the same range in terms of cost. I like going local. I think someone used the expression, they've got a dog in the fight a little bit. They've got a real vested interest in doing well for the city. So they know Marion, they know the unique needs of Marion and our city. So that was a big push. So I really very quickly narrowed my focus to the two local firms. They were very responsive. They jumped on my call right away. They returned calls very quickly. I think they've got the scope to handle it. There's more than one person in the office, things like that. So I like the detail of their proposal. Again, it was very personal. They listened to what we were looking for, and that's indicative in the proposal. So,
Aside from your statement that they've built in 60 days notice for the candidate at the end, are there any other steps in their timeline that you think are unreasonably long or can be cut down? I mean, I know that 3 and 4, preparation of profile and council approval of profile. I mean, we're already in process of putting together the profile with Patty, and so that may cut some time down. But is there anything else that you think is?
the thing that's noteworthy with the timeline is that it's a guesstimate. We can control our process. We can move very quickly on our end, and then it's a hurry up and wait situation because the candidates emerge when they emerge. So in terms of the proposed timeline, those are averages of averages of averages. It's a best guesstimate, but no one has any control over when that candidate becomes available. We could, in theory, source someone next week that's not working, and they could start right away. So again, the timeline it's an average. It's an average. I don't see anything unreasonable. Like I said, we can move very quickly on our end. And again, we would reiterate our sense of urgency to the firm as well. But then ultimately it's when the candidates arise.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, Kirsten, I like the first two comments, bullet points under Callahan Henson about specializing in city administration manager, the fact that it's a personalized proposal. But can you give us a comment about the third bullet where it says local recruiting focus, because some of the other ones refer to a broad geographic reach. I mean, we're already going to get a pretty broad geographic reach by going out through the city manager website. So can you give us a comment about the local recruiting focus and what that means?
The comment there was really just when they're focused on the local region, they're more familiar with it than say someone that's not sitting within Iowa. So again, they know our market better, they know our community better, they would have insight into who's moving, potentially who's looking to make a move. It was just noteworthy to me that they really focus in local recruitment searches.
So are you talking about the state of Iowa? Or?
The state of Iowa. It's the state of Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, they highlighted that on their website.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Grant, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So somewhat on that same bullet point, Kirsten, is there anything about Callahan, Hinson that that would prevent them from perhaps also looking more on a national basis? I guess I'm just curious if, if it doesn't have a Iowa address, they don't look. I guess I'm just, how might they behave? What do you know in terms of their looking nationally as well as with a focus on Iowa?
Well, I believe that they do a nationwide search for candidates serving local municipalities, not just local candidates. Does that make sense? So I think they're serving local municipalities, but casting a nationwide net for actual candidates to make the move here.
And Grant, where I think that comes into play is like in Iowa, the Iowa managers, we know people from Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, the surrounding states. And so when you look at some of the out-of-state firms, when they're talking about, the up-and-comers, the deputy in a larger community that might be looking, but is not really looking for the right fit, so the ones that are kind of unofficially out there, Hinson has that Midwestern focus, so they're going to know that group versus the ones from California that might know California and the Pacific Northwest. So when you're looking for somebody that maybe is kind of already used to our climate and has a good sense about the legislative environment in Iowa, how city finance works, they're just more closely tied.
And into the passive candidate market as well, which I think, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Will.
So reading through the proposals, I was leaning toward Hinson myself, Hinson Callahan. But I had a couple questions. So the not to exceed 21.5, they also had that accelerated schedule. That was 19,500 in there. I don't know if that's something that to speed things up potentially. And then when it comes to that fee, does that fee include, because I know some of the other proposals, it did not include bringing finalists into town. Does that fee include that, or is that on top of it?
Yeah,
The cost of bringing the finalists
I
into
would
town?
need to confirm. My educated guess would be that those would be expenses on top of the,
On top of,
yeah.
because that one didn't, their proposal
It was
didn't
not
quite
specific,
say
yeah.
compared to others.
It would be typical to have those expenses on top of the fee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Renee, do you have anything? Randy?
I do not, thanks.
Okay, is this something that council members are prepared to vote on today? Is there anyone who would object to voting today to select a firm?
No objection here, Your Honor.
Okay, so if there's just one more call for discussion or questions or clarifications on these proposals. Or Kirsten's recommendation. Okay, then we can have the motion and you can make the motion to include whichever one you think should be approved.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, Grant here, just one residual question. And so is Callahan Hinson, are they in a position to engage with us immediately as soon as is achievable?
Yes.
And so what would be the first event we might anticipate? And I'm looking at their timeline, but give me your thoughts on that.
Well, the first step would be signing the contract, and then I would need to let them know the exercise that council has gone through with Patty Shada, that the candidate profile has been created. And we would provide them with that. And then their next step would be to develop either a brochure or an ad to go to print.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 29640, approving the Callahan Hinson Consulting proposal for city manager recruitment services.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Callahan Hinson Consulting proposal for city manager recruitment services. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Is this Renee?
We can't get the audio to unmute, so she's on my phone.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just for the record, I was at the meeting on time, but nobody could hear me. And so Rachel touched me in, so I've heard everything. I just had a couple questions, and I apologize if I missed this in literature we were sent, but did we have a comparison of these firms in terms of how many candidates they've placed in the last 5 years, say? And then if so, how many of those positions are still in that position? Do we have any stats like that in terms of the success of placement?
A couple of them had numbers, but they all did not have those stats with them in terms of retention. I don't have that. It's a valid question, though.
Yeah.
It's very typical that when a candidate is placed, that there would be a guarantee of some kind, and that guarantee can vary anywhere from, I've seen 90 days and I've seen up to a year.
You know, I totally get that. I just thought that could be a helpful statistic, and at least in terms of number of placements, so we know how maybe connected these firms are. I don't like the idea of going with a single person firm. I think we need some capacity. You know, hopefully it's a firm that is robustly doing this for multiple entities, and this isn't just like a one-off. So that's just a concern I have. But if we don't have that data to compare, then I guess we can't compare it. So I would just go with, you know, whatever your recommendation is.
Well,
Renee, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
say, Renee, I written down from the proposal that Hinson Callahan, it says they had 35 positions filled in the state of Iowa since 2013. So they've done quite a bit in Iowa.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
It's in their cover letter. They have completed 35 city manager administrator searches in Iowa since 2013.
But to her point, the retention
How many have yeah,
stayed.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting statistic.
Volume is one thing, but if they're turning over.
Do you think that these firms do follow up to see what the
Sure.
retention rate is?
I would think some of them do. I don't know if they actually have, you know, good data analytics to share with us, but they know if they haven't worked out.
That's a good question, right?
It's a really
When we
good
think
question.
about considering these firms,
Yeah.
their success rate. I mean, this is a big position that we're filling at the city.
I would just say that that's one of the things that maybe is a little bit unique in my profession is that retention is not necessarily the same bellwether as it is for other positions. If you're doing placements in a lot of cities, 5,000 or less, it's very typical to see managers that are there for 3 to 5 years because they're moving and building their careers. So if your bellwether point is 5 years, that statistic is going to be a little bit misleading in it. I mean, the average retention time for city managers nationwide is right about 7 years. So in my case, being here 14, I'm more the exception rather than the rule.
Did we lose someone? Okay. Renee, are you still with us?
Yeah, I thanks Rachel for having me on. I am at my computer now, so it was hard to hear because of that. There's like an echo in the room, so I unfortunately I missed some of what was being said about the questions that I had asked. So I apologize for that. Yeah, I heard a little bit of what Lon said about the retention not being a bellwether. I get it, but you know, if we're looking at that same data point for 4 firms, there's obviously a certain percentage that speaks to. But I just thought it would show some success in terms of how they find the right candidate and bring those people. The other data point that are very interested in would be how many placements over the last 5 years. Obviously, last year's in a bit of an anomaly, but just that, again, it's not one or two people and this is their consulting business and they don't really do this a lot. I definitely want to have a firm that is steeped in experience and has done it for a long time. In terms of it being local or not local, that doesn't matter to me, as the same thing in terms of the candidate being local or not local. I just want the best. And so to that point, all of the money is kind of similar. So the money isn't an obstacle for me, nor is the timeline. I think that we as a council need to be prepared to not accept anybody in the first batch if we don't like them, because this is too important of a role. I don't mean to say not like them, but not think they're a good fit. There's a very good chance that we have to throw the net out again if we don't get a viable candidate that we agree is a good match for the city. And so is that price built in if we get a slate of candidates that none of us really agrees is the right fit? Do they go back out within this price, or how does that work?
It would be built into that. So you really, what you just said resonated with me. You guys have heard me say this before. The only thing worse than no hire is the wrong hire.
Right.
So if we do not find the right candidate, we would ask them to go out, and that would be built into it. Now, we would really need to flesh out the details on how many times they're willing to go back out for us. But that is a normal procedure for sure.
Awesome. Okay.
Two more things, if I may, Renee. Relative to Callahan and Hinson, you may have not heard me say this, but they have a very narrow service offering, which was meaningful to me, meaning they are specialized in doing these types of recruitment searches. They're not trying to be everything to everybody. Recruiting is what they do, and they do it well. So that really was appealing to me. And then the other thing, the first thing that you said about, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but it was along the lines of just hiring the wrong person. A lot of that needs to be, the onus is on us to identify that during the interview process. We're going through a very meaty exercise of identifying a candidate profile and getting alignment in terms of what we're looking for in the successful hire. And we need to make sure that we're interviewing with that profile in mind, and fleshing out anyone who's got, high turnover or, job instability issues and things like that. So a lot of that does fall on us to flesh that out during the process.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I had a great conversation with Patty this morning in terms of giving my input. And then I don't know if this is at the consultant level. And again, I apologize if I'm the only one who doesn't know this, but so I'm very interested in having our final 2 or 3 candidates, wherever we land with finalists, with whichever firm we go to, doing some kind of public event, a meet and greet or a town hall or something like that with stakeholders. Is that built into the process with all 4 of these? Is that something we can dictate, or is it pretty common? How does that work?
We can absolutely dictate that process with the firm. Another thing that's not in any of these proposals, but should be, is they will all be taking the MPO assessment as a first step. So that will happen as well. So we get to dictate the steps in the process that we want.
Yeah, so
And
I think
that's included in the price, even though we're coming up with maybe things that weren't in their proposal. It's not a la carte. This is kind of an all-inclusive experience with these firms.
Well, in terms of bringing the cost of bringing candidates here, you mean?
No, just the cost of, if we wanted to do, like I said, a public event where we had stakeholders and the public invited to, hear each of the finalists kind of give their view and why they want to be here, et cetera. Obviously, this is ultimately up to the 7 council members to decide. But when I've done these executive searches before, I've found it very enlightening to see how said candidates react, spontaneously to the public. And it's actually changed minds. And I, some anecdotal experience I won't get into here, but I'm happy to share offline. So it really makes a difference. In fact, I don't even know if council is open to that or if that's what we've done in the past, but I feel like that's a really important part of this job. And I just want to make sure that the consulting firms are on board to help orchestrate and manage that, or at least help us get that in place.
I know that I've received that inquiry from people in the public, and I'm personally fully on board with having that as part of the process. And I've been anticipating that the council would have that discussion as after we hire the consultant and get moving down the path of advertising the position, that then we would talk about those types of details. I know there's great interest from stakeholders in the community as well as just public in general, and in some sort of input into the process. And I think that is important.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I'm not trying to have a conversation too early, just in terms of scope of firm and cost. That's why I was asking about that now, because it's definitely a piece that I hope is part of our roadmap for finding, the next city manager.
I understand. I'm glad you brought it up. So anything to add to that, Kirsten, as far as the question about the costs that have been outlined here, is that going to allow for that?
It's a detail that I would have to work out with them. I'm not really sure. I absolutely support that step in the processes as well. I mean, when you have a meet and greet live, things can change. So definitely would recommend we have those last candidates come out and meet with key stakeholders for sure. In terms of any cost, I would need to ask them about it.
Okay. Renee, I would also add on the last page of the Hinson proposal, there is a list of cities that they've worked with in Iowa on city manager searches. And in you asked about the last 5 years, it's 14 cities in Iowa.
Okay, good to know. And yeah, I didn't look at, the one pager that we got from Kirsten was kind of what I was expecting for this process. So that's the only thing that I've seen. So I appreciate that. I'll go back and take a look at what we were sent.
Yeah, I think that email went out on Friday with the full proposal. So, okay. Any other questions?
Your Honor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a follow-on comment on this particular discussion. So I think some form of town hall, it certainly seems to be fitting for this, given the importance of the hire. I would just venture to say, if there is some additional work that we define as necessary, I certainly would be open to changing the scope with Callahan Hinson, as well as perhaps their fee, if we're asking them to do something that is we deem essential for our hiring process. So I think the proposal is a good start at 21.5, but I would well think that if there's something that we need to add into the process, that we should have a willingness to adjust their fee if that's necessary. So.
Okay. Other comments? Questions? Yes, go ahead, Will.
Do we need to decide if it's the standard or schedule or an accelerated schedule? Do we need to figure that out this evening, or is that?
Didn't understand. What was the question?
So they had the two options, the 21.5 or the standard schedule timeline. Or
the expedited timeline.
yes, or their accelerated schedule, which was 19.5, because they cut out a couple steps in the accelerated. Is that something we need to decide this evening, or is that something they can get going on it? And then, because the steps were, if I remember correctly, because I don't have it in front of me, the step was, I think, semifinalist, something with the semifinalist. So it's obviously down the road a little bit.
It's another round of interviews, essentially, is what
With the
that
semifinalists.
is. Yeah. In terms of what needs to be approved today, I think it's just the selection of the firm, right? I would think.
Yeah, once you make the selection of the firm, then Kirsten will have the opportunity to go back and personalize the schedule, walk them through what Patty Shada is doing and what information is going to be provided, and really go through the capacity that we have internally to be able to support the search and what that will take out of the timeline. So then it would come back to the council with the final proposal, in essence, what would be the contract, but this will get it started.
And with potentially a different dollar amount if we're able to cut out steps.
That's satisfactory to everyone? Any concerns, questions? Further discussion on the motion? Okay. I can't see if Renee has her hand up because, so.
I don't. I'm
Okay.
quiet because I'm content to vote. Thank you.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be sure that you didn't have the hand up to speak, and I don't have my tablet here, so I'm not seeing it. Okay. Any further questions before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution number 29640, approving the Hinson Consulting proposal for city manager recruitment services, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay, the motion is approved. And that is the only item on our agenda this evening. So unless anyone has any further questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting and adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for making time for this. And continue to look for communications from Kirsten. I want to thank Kirsten for being so diligent and keeping us updated on the process and keeping things moving while you have other things you're paying attention to at the same time. So thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night, all.
Thanks, Nick.